In this video tutorial, we're going to go through the new version 1.5 update save feature. So if you've not already done so, if you've not checked out our other main video for the upgrades, main features are you can change your resolution, and we have this new open and save file structure. So let's dive into it. Let's open up a new PDF file. Let's go in and find some file. Let's go with this trading card. Okay, so lots of different layers in here. So let's just set that up now and confirm the mapping. So one of the biggest upgrades is a new rendering engine. We've rebuilt it from the ground up. It's a lot faster. So even with a file that's got many layers, it rips it and renders it super fast. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and configure this thing as we would in a real job. But I'm actually going to do things a little bit crazy so you can see things changing. So let's first of all work with a holographic foil substrate. And let's put on some texture. Before I do, we actually do have a thickness in here now, so you can actually see the depth of the substrate. So if you do want to put substrate depth in there, you can do so. We are now going to play around with it. So let's add in, let's go with cellular. This is one of our testing patterns that we put in there just to, we're basically working with math to see what we can do with it. Let's just align all this sort of stuff. Let's make it bigger so it's easy to see what we're doing. So we create this weird pattern. Let's change the frequency and the complexity, the vibrancy, coverage variation to make something really weird. Let's change the reflectivity and the ink matte control and the surface texture. So what I'm doing here is making some easy settings that I can visually see. Has it changed? Let's also set it to like a goldish color. So you can see here, we've changed the paper thickness, we've changed all those different sliders based on the material. Now, you would not normally do this. I'm just doing it to prove a point. Okay, so what we're going to do now, color logic, let's set that to white. Because that's an inverted workflow, so we'll leave that as color logic. There's a tone curve already there from a previous work. So you can, if you want, add tone curves. So let's just put one in there anyway, so it will save it. In fact, let's do a slightly different one, just to prove that it is saving what I've done to my file. So let's make a nice S curve on that one. It's one of the unique features of V3R. We don't really know of any other software out there that does real-time tone curve adjustments in your file. So if you're not familiar with tone curves, just like in Photoshop, when you open up a curve, you can change the color. So if you want to dial in that little bit of effect towards what your press does, maybe your press fills in a little bit in the 3/4 tone, you can do so. Let's change the color of this. Let's go with a lot brighter yellowish color so we can see it changing. I'm just going to align all of these quite weirdly. Again, you would never do this normally. I just want to really kind of bake this in. Let's do some trapping on this one. So ink trapping. How does the ink trap over the top or fuse? So when I reduce this black one down, watch what happens to this black toner here. So it only affects the black where that gold is because we're controlling it through the gold separation. So none of the black anywhere else is affected. It's just how does that black or the CMYK in total print over the top of a metallic ink? Anybody that's printed over the top of metallic ink knows that basically black over silver or gold will go like a charcoalish grey. And that's a fusing or trapping property of ink. And we're probably the only company that really does all of this inside rendering software. Let's move the black down. Let's actually get rid of that tone curve. Let's get rid of those so we don't have a tone curve on the black. We'll leave it off on the black. Let's move that down to the bottom. Then I'm going to change my mind and I'm going to move up one layer at a time because we can do that. With V3R, we can move every layer is independent. So you can put the black down first, then the CMYK, the blacks over the gold, so we've got the trapping. If we were doing gold as an overlay, we can move the gold to the top of the layer stack. We don't have to re-rip it or anything. That's just silly. You want to be able to do this in real time. The neon pink, let's add that to the Ricoh press. Let's just change the opacity because it's only a one pass on the press. Maybe it's not quite as punchy. We'll leave the trapping as it is because there's nothing over the top of it in this case. We'll leave the tone curve alone. Gold, let's change that gold foil so it's down here. Let's go quite pale so we can see it physically change. Let's just align some of these. Let's put on hot foil, and you would never do all this, but I'm just going to kind of like set a lot of these things up in weird positions just so it's a lot easier for me to see did the file capture what we put into it? So we set all that weird stuff up inside there. Next, we'll do the same thing with the rainbow foil. Let's leave the rainbow foil as that. Let's just set all these up. And again, you would never do this normally, but it's just to prove a point. Let's leave the foil textures off on that one. Let's do a nice big height and bevel. That's a bit too much. Let's go along with something more like that. It's a bit more realistic. So we've got a nice chunky rainbow holographic frame with a weird substrate in the background. We've got that the metallic with the black trapping over the top. We've got the CMYK that we changed the layers. The cut file, don't want that. Let me delete that one. Duplo. Okay, Duplo, what we're going to do with this one? Let's just move everything again, kind of like in line, just so it's kind of easy to see on the screen. And invisible ink, well, basically invisible inks are invisible until you switch on a UV light. And when you move it out of the light, they disappear. So we're probably the only company that does a UV reactive light for the invisible inks on the press. Let's change that to a blue, because there are different types of invisible inks. HB Indigo used to have a blue and a yellow, so different security uses. So let's just drop that down. Let's add a new layer. Let's add a flood layer. We're going to go with a holographic film in this case, and we're going to change that holographic film. Now, that holographic film doesn't come from a PDF file. It doesn't exist. It's been created and added on top of the file. Let's change that to pillars of light. Let's kind of like move all of this up here, put the angles down, the gaps, the pillar movements. So we've now got some kind of rainbow holographic pillars of light over the top. We've got this 3D raised foiling, we've got the crazy background, we've got the color logic set with an inverted workflow. So if you don't know what color logic is, it's inverting the separation to print with white. We've got tone curves on there. We had a tone curve on the magenta that we left in place, and everything else is in there. So you can see we've set up that file with some quite crazy different effects. So what we do now is we save that file. So I'm going to save that file down to my desktop. Okay, so let's quit. So we now have this V3R file format. So if I now double click that, it's going to open up and launch V3R. What it's going to do now is it's going to re-rip that file and do everything that I did to that file, including deleting layers, moving layers up and down, setting the base substrates, changing different separations, putting in every single slider, tweak and setting that we did. So it's now going to lock up your screen and just kind of like freeze you out. So it just says, you know, we're doing this. So you can see it already working in the background. So it's collecting all that metadata that we basically built with that file, which now allows you to be able to save the file. So if you want to work on something and send it to a customer and say, what do you think? And they say, oh, could you change that red foil to a bronze? You can just open up the V3R, change the foil over, save it again, send out a new rendering to your customer, and then that way you can keep going back to your file. So it's been a huge bit of development. It has taken a long time to get this all done and working, but it then plays into the new format that's coming out later on, which will be the V3RX format. And that V3RX format will allow you to be able to send it to a customer to open up in a Freeview app, which means they'll be able to do all this crazy stuff, spinning it around, switching on layers and all that fun stuff. So let's take a look at what it's done. So has it worked? Let's go to our substrates, rainbow, thickness, all these sliders, everything that's in place we set. Let's go to our separations. Color logic, we set to white, that's done it. Tone curve, did it honor my tone curve? It did. Let's go into the gold. So we changed the gold, we set all those sliders, and we did some ink trap sliders on that one. We moved the black layer down to the bottom and then moved it back up 2 layers. We kept the magenta tone curve on there. We set the neon pink to the Rico, changed the opacity. We didn't change the ink trapping because there was nothing over the top of it. Gold foil, we changed to a pale foil. We changed all the sliders, every texture, every setting is all saved inside there. The rainbow foil, we went a bit crazy. We added a 3D raised. We didn't do the textures on that one. The Duplo, we all aligned all those sliders as well. The invisible, we changed to blue, reduced it down. We added on a holographic film layer, set it to pillars of light with every slider, all captured. And there we have our really wacky out file, just to show you how that works. So that is how the new save format works. So when you're working with V3R, the best thing to do is set up your layers as you would normally do. Of course, I've gone over the top on this one just to prove a point, to show you the sliders easily. But when you set up your files, save it as a default, and then you can just open up a file anyway. So if you've got a new PDF you're opening up, it will always jump to your default settings. And then when you make any tweaks or settings or move things around, it will remember it. So if your system doesn't allow you to move layers, switch layers on or off, then it's a fake render. So by that, what I mean is it's an RGB image that's being basically placed over the top. What happens is they take a PDF file, they rip it, and that takes it, it's like taking a 4-color PDF file into Photoshop, and you end up with an RGB image, and then putting that RGB image over the top of a foil. And that means that you can't ever switch off CMYK, so you would never know, does my black overprint? As we can see here, my black is set to overprint, so from a print production and pre-press standpoint, I know I've set my file up right. And that's the whole point of visualization, to get you as close as possible to the real deal without having to go backwards and forwards onto the press, wasting precious time, resources, carbon footprint and all that fun stuff. So there you go, the new V3R file save format.